Well, hello and welcome to our Q&A session. We've got on our panel today the Altrincham Football Club first team manager Phil Parkinson, co-chairman Bill Waterson and football director Rob Esteva. My name's Brian Flynn, and we are going to be taking the questions that you have put to us since we made the announcement of this Q&A session on Monday. We've got a lot of questions to get through, and what we've done is we've grouped the questions into specific areas. And obviously, we've got a lot of questions on 2 or 3 specific areas, and then a number of other questions on a number of other areas. So we're going to plough through those one by one. I'm going to start off with the arena of full-time football and the whole hybrid question. We had lots and lots of questions on this, as you'd expect, in the wake of the non-league paper article on Sunday. I'm going to start off with a question from Barry Pikesley, and Barry Pikesley, on the subject of the non-league paper interview with Neil Sorville, says, why are significant developments relating to the club's future being announced via the pages of the non-league paper rather than on the official club website? Did the board have advance knowledge of the contents of last Sunday's article, and shouldn't the club have already instituted a professional policy whereby any media inquiry is to be automatically referred to its press and media officers? So who'd like to take that one?
I'll take that one. Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Barry, for the question. We do have a set of policy and procedures covering all of our operations here at the football club. We are overhauling those on a regular basis as we grow and as we move up through the leagues. What we're required to do across the board differs from situation to situation. And of course, you know, you look at the changes in policy that we've had to put in place around admissions for things like the COVID attendance restrictions, and you can see that our policies have come under quite a lot of strain over the past few years. In this particular case, it didn't work. It shouldn't have gone into the non-league paper first. That was an error on our part of process and procedure, which we're looking at how we fix. But this audience here, our fans, should always hear first of major developments within the club. So hands up on that one. It was a mistake on our part.
Thank you, Bill. So the next question is from Christopher Whitelake. And Bill, perhaps you'd like to answer this one as well. In the next 5 years, will Altrincham Football Club players eventually be full-time, or is that too soon to say at this time?
So our plan, our ambition, first of all, our vision is that we're challenging for the Football League and looking to get into the Football League. In order to do that, we have to be full-time. You wouldn't be able to do that as a part-time club. The journey to get from where we are to full-time is one, therefore, that we're planning how we would make that transition. The critical element for us to be able to make that transition is funding, and we're working very hard on raising the necessary funding to make that transition. I would say that in 5 years' time, it would be almost a certainty that we were full-time. But, you know, if the COVID pandemic closes us down, restricts our revenue opportunities going forward and the like, then you know, the whole of football will be in trouble. So assuming that we're floating in an environment where football is more or less back to normal, we will continue the journey towards full-time and continue to raise the resources and the money in particular that we need to make that journey.
Thank you, Bill. Next question is from Phil James, who says, after the recent news in the non-league paper, can you confirm if this is factually correct that we are remaining part-time like 2 other clubs due to finances and player preferences? Note well, fans were previously advised we would be having a hybrid season before looking to go full-time the year after or year after that. Also, as a result of this, will this impact on player recruitment? I.e., will we now only look to sign part-time players? I have limited options on who we can sign. And who would like to say that one?
I can take that one, Brian. Thanks for the questions, Phil. I'll tackle, I guess, the financial bit first. I think the bit that's a little bit misleading here is that, you know, I think the comments were not directly related to the club's finances. You know, we're in a healthy position. The decision that we made around, you know, the whole part-time, hybrid, full-time conversation was due to the uncertainty moving forward around the restrictions, and while also we've had the positive news, well, it depends on which way you're going to look at it, but the positive news the government have come out with in recent days, there's still uncertainty, and there was when we made the decision some weeks back, but there still is moving forward. There could be restrictions. It's going to limit commercial activities. It's not just about gates or sponsorship. It's all the secondary spends that we've lost out on, hosting events, the bar. It's cost us. And we still truly don't know how it's going to play out over the course of this season. Are there going to be, lockdowns? Is there going to be any kind of restrictions on fans coming in? So that was the kind of underlying uncertainty from a financial perspective moving forward. And again, the board, while we're very ambitious, we're not going to jeopardise the kind of financial stability of the club. In terms of player preferences, I don't really know what that means, to be honest. I mean, obviously the players form part of that, decision-making process, and how it will impact them. Some of the lads can't train during the days due to their jobs. They're key players to us. We know they're valuable to the club, and we're not going to create an environment where we've got two different groups of players doing different things. I've spoken to loads of teams. Me and other members of the board have spoken, as has Phil actually. We've spoken to other clubs who've gone through a similar process. That's not something that we wanted to do. So I hope that answers the first part of the question. I think the second one, just in terms of impacting player recruitment and only looking to sign part-time players, I don't think that's been the case for the last couple of years, regardless of where we've been or what division we've been. I don't think we've been that limited. We might be limited financially compared to some of the other teams in the National League, but not from the full and part-time perspective. It hasn't stopped us recruiting the likes of Ryan Cole, Alistair Smith, Mike Kozlow, Marcus Dinanga from full-time teams. So I don't see that as being something that's going to impact us.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I think you'd probably like to answer this question as well from Glyn Vero. Glyn says, now that we are staying part-time, where does that leave the players who joined when they were full-time and I assume expected to stay full-time?
I mean, Phil's had full and frank conversations with all the old players and the new players. The new lads have known that, we're not going to be going full-time this season, but they know direction which we're heading and what they're committing to. I mean, bizarrely, you can't put in a standard football contract the number of hours they're expected to work or what those hours are. But we've covered all the eventualities and all the lads know what's expected from them.
Thank you. Perhaps we can bring in Phil Parkinson now. I've got a question from Freddie Stott. And Freddie says, I have a question regarding fitness and conditioning. Regardless of part-time status, this is the fittest and best conditioned Alty side I've ever seen. Are the players expected to follow training and diet plans away from club hours, or are they free to pursue fitness as they wish? How might this change as we move towards a hybrid model?
That's a great question. It's something ever since myself and Neil come to the football club we implemented with regards changing the medical department, the medical team, and I feel Tommy Uda and Ryan Murray revolutionised that in terms of for the level of football that we were playing at, the systems that they put in place, the checks they put in place, the programmes they introduce year on year, and bringing Ryan Spencer into the fold now Tommy Uda's left just shows the commitment that the club made to this and the emphasis we put on strength and conditioning and how important it is. I've gone on record a number of times saying that in this division in particular, we're punching above our weight, but not in that department. I believe our medical team are as good as they get, and hopefully we'll reap the benefits of that now the gyms are back open.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Rob, perhaps you can take this next question from Jan Steggles. Jan says, hi, what is the main reason for the delay in adopting the hybrid system? Is it purely down to the unwillingness of the players to commit to the system, or is there a financial issue that fans should be made aware of?
I think I've pretty much answered that question previously. I mean, I guess the one thing that I would add is this is a decision that the board have made with Phil and Neil. You know, we've gone through everything, and it's what we think is the best thing right now. We've increased the playing budget again for the second year. Well, I think we've done it every year actually while I've been here, but we've committed to that. Obviously, as we've gone up the leagues and so on, and we're comfortable with where we're at for this season. What I didn't love about the article was it had a very negative slant on it. We're not negative whatsoever about this. We see it as a positive move. We think it's the right thing for the club at the time, and it has enabled us to invest in other areas as well in terms of players. So, no, we're absolutely comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob, for that. Bill, could perhaps you make some comments on, I think, certainly the next couple of questions. Emily Maddox says, when will Altrincham become full-time? And Martin Gillett asks, is it true this is now being delayed by a year or so? That's going hybrid. Why are we hearing about it first through the non-league paper? And also a question from Tony Millington, and Tony says, I read before that the club has a timetable for when they would like to become a full-time club. Is that still on course, or has the pandemic put that on hold because of the lack of money coming into the club during the last 2 seasons? Bill, similar questions there, and I think you've sort of covered the answers partially already, but perhaps we could get your comments on those questions.
Sure, and thanks all for the questions. I think there's a couple of things we need to just differentiate here. The hybrid model, if we'd have gone to that this season, was simply a stepping stone to full-time football. And the aim was to go to full-time football season 22-23. What I'll say is, let's assume the first part of this answer is in a COVID-free world with normal revenue streams and the investment that we're bringing in and so on. So our plan was to go full-time 22-23 and pass through hybrid on the way with just a single season of hybrid. If we don't do that hybrid season now, and we're not, then there's nothing to stop us as long as we can raise the investment going full-time next season. So it doesn't delay our plans in that regard. Hybrid was simply a means to an end to sort of ease us in towards full-time football. Our primary aim for the 21-22 season is to stay up, to establish ourselves as a National League club with a readiness to go full-time next season. Now, of course, that could be put in jeopardy if, as Rob has already said, the revenue streams just aren't there because of restrictions that are put in by COVID. So sort of hypothesis A, planning in a normal world, is that we still look at going full-time in 22-23, and we work towards that. And we've talked about raising sufficient capital to have a proper run at being full-time, not just a one-season wonder, but a 3-year plan of being full-time for all of those seasons, and then trying to build the revenue streams ongoing for the club during that period. So in a COVID-free world, that's still very much our plans and what we're driving towards. However, we do have to look at the restrictions that might remain as a consequence of COVID, and we're seeing the numbers begin to creep up again, unfortunately, that says that those revenue streams, that investment, that money that we're looking for might not be there. And that will cause us to re-evaluate our plans and put perhaps a different timescale on it. But to reiterate, in a normal world, we're still aiming for that full-time 22-23 season, even without the stepping stone of hybrid for the 21-22 season.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And the last question on the sort of potential move to hybrid and full-time football is from David Wright. David says, now that Phil and Neil are full-time, do you think that this season we will see some new and or existing players being signed up to full-time contracts to help player retention, which will in turn help with consistency over the season? Who'd like to take that one?
I can take that one, Brian. I don't think it does change too much, and I think it's unlikely to do so in terms of player retention. We'll continue to adopt the same model that we've implemented for the last few years, and that's essentially to reinvest the monies that we bring in, invest the value, increase the value of the playing squad, and essentially just build everything so that, it's virtually six-figure sums that we've brought in the last couple of years from players going out, and all of that is going back into the playing budget. So we'll continue to do that. I don't think it makes a difference whether there is no difference in terms of full or a part-time contract. In a standard football contract is what it is. It's purely down to what the expectations are when the player signs up for it. I think the key thing is having Phil and Neil committed full time is the real crucial thing for us and for the football club moving forward. And I think I'm pretty sure I said it at the time. Regardless of on the player side, that was always going to happen. Was always our intention anyway. Phil and Neil have already had, along with myself, various meetings with league clubs, building relationships with regards to loans, younger players, etc. And equally, we have to spend more time meeting with agents and building relationships there. Phil and Neil have now got more time to spend going to under 18, under 23s games, trial games, scouting players, watching more video, doing more analysis, preparing better. All of those things are going to make this club better. And that is one of the biggest improvements we've got this season.
Thanks, Rob. Let's move on to the next section, which is streaming. We had one question regarding streaming from Philip James, and Philip asks, will streaming be available to fans again next season? Streaming is great for those who cannot make games, e.g. our abroad fans, those who are still fearful of COVID, those on holidays, plus in my own case, having heart surgery shortly, so we'll be laid up for a few months. Bill, would you like to answer?
So streaming was made possible through the relaxation of UEFA Article 48, which the implementation of that was the forbidding of broadcasting games that kicked off at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. As part of the pandemic, that restriction was lifted, which allowed us and other clubs to stream Saturday games as well as midweek games too. Now, there's two things that we're still waiting for clarification on, which could prevent streaming from going forward. The first is, will this restriction on 3 o'clock on Saturday be put back in place? We don't know, but I suspect there'll be pressure to do that. The second is the National League and the contract that they've signed with BT Sport. Will BT Sport put back in place a restriction that we can't broadcast at the same time? That effectively, they have exclusive rights to live coverage of games, whether or not they're showing them or not. Now, both of those factors are unknown at the moment. And now, if either of those factors are decided in a particular way, that closes off streaming for us. But I absolutely agree. The number of fans that I've spoken to in the last 12 months who live outside the Altrincham area who've said that they've seen the club more often last season than they've seen them for years, and they've been absolutely blown away by the quality of what they've seen. And what we're seeing, by the way, in terms of season ticket sales at the moment, is there's a big tranche of season ticket sales to people who haven't had season tickets before, but who have watched half a dozen or more streams. So that advertisement for the club really has stood us in good stead. We would really love to carry on with streaming, and basically we wrote to the league and we supported some work that Hereford were doing, and basically we were arguing that there were four cohorts of people that would benefit from streaming: the absentee fans, i.e. the exile fans, those who live abroad, those who for whatever reason are continuing to have to isolate because of health grounds, and away fans, and then cutting down on the number of away fans who were travelling. Now, we felt that these four constituencies basically meant that there was a good case for continuing with streaming, particularly preventing, hordes of away fans from turning up at Moss Lane and travelling the length and breadth of the country, sort of super spreader events. But we await feedback from the league on that, because there are bigger powers at play than just Altrincham Football Club and the National League here. UEFA have got a voice, for example.
Thanks very much, Bill. The next questions, there's two of them, are related to the testimonial announced around about this time last year for Sean Densmore. First question comes from Andrew Flynn, and Andrew asks, or says, our pre-season schedule is looking pretty full now. Wanted to ask if Sean Densmore's highly deserved testimonial will still be going ahead. I'd also like to ask if there were any potential opponents in mind for this game, or whether it would be more likely to be a Densmore 11 versus somebody else type of game. And Philip James also asks, when will the club be announcing details of Sean Densmore's testimonial match and any other testimonial events for Sean? Opposition, tickets, other events. Also, will the testimonial be the first match played on the new pitch, or will the game be later in the season?
I can set that, Brian.
Thanks, Rob.
Time-wise, it's likely to be a Tuesday night after the Dover game, sometime in September. We can't play it before then, as we did ask the league to put our first home game back due to pitch work. So we will wait to get a home league game in first. And then obviously in terms of, who we'll be playing against, it's likely to be an all Alty affair, I would imagine. So some kind of Densmore 11, I've discussed it with Sean. That's kind of what we've agreed. And obviously we'll just come up with a date, which is obviously best for the first team, but also in terms of obviously who's going to be involved in it. We're in the process of setting up the testimonial committee right now. And I think now it is getting to the point where we can commit to a date with the fixtures that have come out. And obviously it's one where we've got good certainty that fans are going to be allowed in, which is the reason obviously why it's just been delayed all this time. So I'm pretty confident we'll be in a position to announce something in the next week or so.
That's brilliant, Rob. Thanks very much. The next question, we've got one question regarding COVID-19. Perhaps, Bill, you could take this one. This again comes from Philip James, who says, it may be too soon to answer this, especially as Boris Johnson's only just announced relaxation of COVID restrictions on the 19th of July. But will the club be looking to relax COVID measures for the new season, i.e. allow no restrictions on crowd levels and allow away fans, as the government appears to be relaxing these measures? Or will the club do a more patient and staggered crowd numbers increase over the initial games of the new season?
Thanks to that. I mean, this is we would be very keen, and our planning at the moment is that we would have unrestricted fan access from the Dover game on the 4th of September onwards. So our planning is towards that. We've got to get agreement from Trafford Borough Council that they're comfortable with that, but we're basically going to go full stream ahead for that. I mean, we had, I thought, a successful 3 games at the end of last season with limited crowds. And it was great to see people back in the stadium, and we're really looking to expand on that. So our nominal capacity is 7,800. I think we're fairly safe that we're not going to exceed that. Even if limitations come out at 50% of capacity, we're still talking about the best part of 4,000 people in Moss Lane, which I think we can be comfortable with. With the readmission of away fans, certainly away fans bring a lot to a game. They bring a lot to the atmosphere. They're part of the experience. And actually, I want to see Altrincham fans stood on away terraces at Torquay, at Halifax, and then as we go through the season. So we will hope that away fans will be allowed to attend games. We will probably put in place reciprocal arrangements. So if a particular club isn't willing on having away fans at their place, we probably will repeat that when they come to ours. But our aim is that the J. Davidson Stadium is fully open for business from the 4th of September onwards, with no limitations on crowd. But of course, we'll be driven by government legislation and by the prevailing legislation in place at the time. But at the moment, our plans are open for business from September the 4th.
Thank you, Bill. Moving on to the subject of transfers, we have one question related to the Lewis Salmon deal. That comes from Michael Chapman. And Michael states that the fee is undisclosed. Can you shed any light on the fee and as to why it's undisclosed? And is there a sell-on clause with Nottingham Forest? This sounds like one for our football director.
No, I can't shed any light on it, I'm afraid. Most request fees these days that they are undisclosed, and that's whether you're buying or the selling club. Whether it's because you don't want everybody to know what kind of monies you're spending, receiving, it all conditions and impacts your next negotiation with other clubs. As for sell-ons, we've always included clauses, certainly during my time at the club, in all of that. We've just received a payment due to a team surviving this current season, the season just gone, the team that we saw the player to last season, as one example. So, yeah, selling clauses, it's another massive one for us. I think about potential windfalls at this club. Of course, you've got, aside from a big investor coming in some shape or form, the first one is a cup run, and then the second one is from a sell-on fee. York got the 2 million for going from Norwich to Everton. It's huge, and it's not necessarily about the monies we receive from this one transaction. It's the one afterwards, which is where the potential big windfall comes from. So, yeah, of course, it's something that we insist in all of our deals.
Right, thank you very much, Rob. The next subject matter is the ground, and we've got a couple of questions here. The first one from Ray Sant, one of our Shropshire-based supporters, and Ray asks, can we confirm the reconstruction of the drains and new playing surface has now been completed, and will it be ready for use for the start of the new season? And Sarah Allen says, it's amazing to see Altrincham Football Club pitch getting done. Really needed the TLC come on Alty. Bill, perhaps you could update us as to where we are in terms of the ground.
Certainly will do. I'll be quick. The grass is growing, so the work is done. Grass is growing really nicely. The conditions of use are that the pitch will be formally signed off for use as a football pitch 8 weeks after grass has started growing. So we're about 7 weeks away from the pitch being signed off as fit for use, which fits very nicely with the timelines of the 4th of September for the Dover game. This is a significant investment that the club has made in this pitch. It needed the work, but not only have we just fixed what we had, but we're looking to create a top-class playing surface to allow us to play football the Phil Parkinson way at the J. Davidson Stadium week in, week out and throughout the season.
That's great, and I can confirm what Bill's just said there. I was at the ground 9 days ago, and you couldn't see any grass on the pitch whatsoever. I'm here right now, and it's full of grass. It's looking in really, really good condition, and progress is really, really good. So let's move on to the Puma deal. I've got a couple of questions on the new kit sponsor. Bill, you could take these questions as well. Harry Glimpse says, fantastic news to see Puma being a sponsor on Altrincham FC shirts. This will definitely be making a great statement for the club. And Ellie Claire Paterden says, with this Puma sponsor, Altrincham FC have got for 4 years, will this boost the club finances as well?
Yes, it's fantastic to have Puma on board. And as you can see from Phil, you can get a top like this on altidirect.com, and in doing so you will swell the club coffers and bring more money into the club. We think it's a major step forward for us in terms of what we're able to do now in terms of the quality and merchandise that we're looking to put out there. I think it's a significant step forward for the club, and it will be a big revenue generator for us. Right,
that's fantastic. Thank you, Bill. We got some some nice positive feedback comments, which I'm going to ask Phil Parkinson to comment on in a second or two. Rachel Southwick says, I came to the last game of the 2021 season. I got to say it was a privilege to see how much this club means to all its dedicated fans. I'll be returning this season. I've got to say the managers and players' attitudes are really great to see. Well done, Phil. Keep up the amazing work. Tony Appleton says, looking ahead for the near future, Altrincham FC is going places. Definitely got to say a fantastic achievement in my eyes, going from strength to strength in the last 4 years. Well done, Phil and the lads. And also Graham Yor says he's really enjoyed the work that you've done, Phil and Neil, over the last 4 years, and looking forward to continued great football on the new pitch next season. It's really, really good to get those sorts of comments, Phil.
It is. It's fantastic to hear, and it's why we all love being part of football, because you saw last night with the England game the joy it brings to fans and how it brings people together. I certainly had goosebumps on my neck sticking up last night with what happened, and I feel like that at Altrincham, and it's been an unbelievable journey since we've come into the building. So one of the big reasons I wanted to commit my future and put everything on the line is because of the belief I've got in this board, this football club, the fans, the players that I work with. So my faith in the football club is reciprocated in the same way that the fans obviously appreciate what we do. I'm giving everything to this football club, putting everything on the line, and I hope people can see that, and long may it continue, and the journey keeps going in an upward trajectory, because I see that's where this football club's going.
Okay, thank you, Phil. We also received a number of suggestions from Dennis Bate. It's probably not really appropriate on this particular Q&A session or this particular Zoom call to discuss all of those, because they all need considering. But thanks, Dennis, for all your suggestions. There were a number of them related to away travel booking, putting a photo of a supporter in the programme for each home game. Let's see what else there was as well. Having a competition for a free football shirt when you purchase a programme. Selling ice cream at the grounds, an opportunity possibly for the football club, away travel cost, and also who's going to organise the away travel, because sadly we lost Mark Ecclesall, one of our best known and longest standing supporters, and fantastic person. We lost Mark sadly last year, and he organised the away travel. So we know that those sorts of things have got to be dealt with, and we will be responding to your suggestions, Dennis. But thank you very, very much for all of those. Bill, have you got anything to say on top of?
I just want to thank Dennis for, there's seriously a lot of thought gone into a whole bunch of suggestions for stuff that we can do, and could possibly make the match day experience in the away travel better. We will certainly consider all of them and look at how many of them we can put into place for next season. So thank you, Dennis.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on now to the season coming up, the season we're all interested in, which starts on the 21st of August. And we, of course, heard the fixtures for the new season on Wednesday. First question related to the new season comes from Andrew Flynn. Andrew says there was a numerical target set for our first season back in the National League in the form of a point total. Are we aiming for any set target again this season? And if so, are we aiming any higher than last season's consolidation target of 50 points? This is one for you, Phil.
Yeah, certainly. Year on year, you always set a short, medium and long-term targets with regards to points. The obvious one is the survival target. Every single team in the division will do that, whether it's Stockport County or ourselves. So 50 points for me was a standard points tally from what I'd researched year on year, and speaking to other managers as well. And I think when you listen to other manager interviews, 50 points was a pretty standard target. And ultimately survival was the aim, even if it was the last kick of the last game. That was the aim for the season. So for me, With the revised target, with obviously teams dropping out of the league for COVID reasons, we overachieved anyway. We hit the 45 points target. We finished above the teams who were promoted. So considering all the adversity we were against, the points that we set were realistic, and I think that's got to be the case. You'll hear me say that a lot. I was saying it last season. That's not me being negative. We have to be realistic about what our aims are at the moment. But if things go our way as well, listen, who knows what we could achieve? And we were saying that at the Torquay game away last year, where we're at the lofty heights of 4th position. You never know in football, and that's why it's such a great game to be involved in. But we'll always be a points target, certainly.
Thanks, Phil. Andrew also asks or states that he has small concerns about our pre-season schedule being entirely away from home and against sides further down the pyramid than ourselves. With the utmost respect, I wanted to ask Phil and Rob whether we have faced any challenges in trying to arrange games against Football League opposition, and whether we are confident in our schedule being enough to prepare us for a hopefully faster start this time round.
Yeah, I'll jump in there again. Yeah, it has been difficult because obviously we don't have a pitch to play on, so we're having to play away games. And when you organise pre-season fixtures, the football etiquette is you go to the team who are below you in the division. So unfortunately, we can't host anyone, and it's teams are very reluctant to allow you to go to their venues and play on their pitches if you're the team from the division below. Also, the season schedule as well, with us starting later. But I don't think it detracts from the friendlies. The friendlies that we've organised are very, very competitive. Those teams will give us real tough games. You look at the investment going in at a team like Ashton United, for example, even though they're in the MPL, they're recruiting players from league football, National League players who we probably have an interest in ourselves. So when you look at the calibre of opposition, I think it is a little bit disrespectful to say that they're not going to give us a game. They certainly will. Otherwise, we wouldn't put it into our schedule. They've been chosen very deliberately as well, so our fans can come and watch them games, because we have so many big away trips. I know it's a big ask for fans to get to Torquay's away, and I know some people will love that. But for others, it is difficult, and that's why people are talking about streams. So to go to a Trafford, a Curzon, Ashton, that's giving our fans a little bit back as well, to say, come and watch us, come and see your football team play, when they might not be able to do that during the season. So there's been a lot of thought gone into it. It's not just as simple as let's just chuck together a few games to get the lads match fit. There's always a thought process going into pre-season, and that's why those fixtures were selected.
I'll just add to that. I mean, obviously, just with the EFL starting 2 weeks before us, you know, that was another thing that kind of ruled it out. What the league have said is they're committing to aligning the start dates of seasons for the 22-23 season, which will solve that issue. You know, we did look at, and we would like to return to the Isle of Man, and you know, we did think about gatecrashing Lawrence Looney's wedding at the end of July. But, you know, whether it was that or whether or not it was an island trip, the uncertainty around travel and taking 25 footballers, it wasn't going to be a challenge. You know, we've got Brightling Sea. It's a fantastic place to visit. We will be making something of a weekend of that, and hopefully as many fans can come to that one as possible. And then, yeah, we will look at something for next season. We do have some different options lined up for next summer as well. So, yeah, no, in terms of our fixtures this season, look at other teams. You know, look at who Stockport playing. They're playing under 23 teams. They're playing teams from a lower division. It's the nature of it. Yeah, no concerns from that perspective.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks, Phil, and thanks to Andrew for your questions there. Simon Ellis says, firstly, a hugely enjoyable season last year. I wonder if clubs will now understand how we play and what our philosophy is. Will we be looking to spring a surprise or two with our style this year, or is it better to stick with what we are good at? So that's one for you, Phil.
I think everybody knows my opinion on this. We've got an identity at the football club. It's something we're firstly proud of and protective of. And I feel people always talk about a plan A and plan B. Obviously, we have to be a little bit more savvy with some tactical adjustments, maybe defensively away from home, which we'll look at. But I've always believed the best form of defence is attack. I always have a steely belief that we be more concerned about what we do than what the opposition do. Obviously, we need to be aware of the strengths and weaknesses, and that goes without saying. As Rob was saying, we'll get far more time to look at that in terms of the analysis and giving the quality of information to the players. But in general, I think the fans really like the fact that they can identify with the team. They play a brand of football that not every team or isn't associated with non-league in general. It's something we do slightly differently. Other teams are doing it now. I think the modern game is changing. I think it is filtering down into non-league more and more. So I think you'll see more teams playing the same or a similar brand of football to what we're doing. We've just been probably a little bit ahead of our time. And we're in a position where we've worked that hard at it. Our players have had it that ingrained into them. It's just, as we were talking about earlier, it's that continuity and being able to do it even better and better and better. So I certainly won't be deviating away from what I believe is the way that football should be played, and the way, not just from a philosophical point of view, but from a winning point of view, because first and foremost, I am a winner. Otherwise, you don't survive in this game. And that feeds through to the players. But we do have to have some form of identity. Otherwise, it just breeds inconsistency, disbelief in what you're doing. And when I lose that belief in what we're doing, then it feeds through to the players, and that's where you see results turn. So we certainly will keep with what we believe is right, and we'll get even better at it next season. And we always score goals. That's probably been the biggest disappointment for me last season, but that's down to the league as well. You don't see many teams that score lots and lots of goals. You don't see many strikers that are getting in the 20, 25 figures, because it's a really tough league defensively. But what I would like to say is we've probably created far more chances than other teams we've come up against. And when we can start to convert them chances, I think we'll see the Altrincham teams of the Conference North, the MPL, who were free-flowing scoring in a really tough division. I think if we can do that, we might have cracked it then, but we're not quite there yet, and we're working towards that.
Brian, I think you saw the stats on the league website, about possession. I think we were fourth in possession. We were top in terms of dribbles and so on. Yeah. There's plenty of good stuff that we're doing. It's fine-tuning it, Phil's essentially just said. And if you think about some of the other teams, a similar thing happened at the start of last season. We're looking at other teams and, I never love necessarily name an example, but say a Barnet, for example, who are obviously got money to spend. They brought in a high-profile manager. They've essentially signed an entirely new team, as have Dover. There's a number of other teams that have done that. That model it can work, but you can't beat continuity. You can't beat, having the identity, which is what we strongly believe in all the way through the club.
Thank you. And I think, Phil, you've answered the first part of the next question, which comes from Erinbo Carroll. Erinbo says, with the pitch now being replaced, will this change the way in which the Altrincham team will play games, or will the preparations stay the same? But she also says, what do you think about the opponents we have on the first day of the 21-22 National League season, which, of course, are Torquay United?
Yeah, tons of respect for Torquay United. Obviously, Gary's done a fantastic job again there, getting them they were at the top of the league for months and months, weren't they? Having a great cup run and going so close, obviously getting pipped by Hartlepool there at the end in the playoff final. So they'll obviously be reeling from that, and we will have the utmost respect for them. We'll have to be on our A game, as we will every single week, because I say it every time I have a post-match with you. We can't get much wrong. So when we play the teams like Torquay, we know we've got to be ultra prepared, ultra ready to go. And we certainly will be come start of the season, because we know we have to be.
Thanks, Phil. Next question is also for you from Barry Pikesley. Barry says, after last season's dispiriting sequence of recruitment failures in the shape of such misfiring nominal strikers as Adarabayo, Bell, Blythe, Harrison and Piggott, who contrived to score just one goal between all five of them, is the management team confident that given the additional time and options that are now available to them, they will finally be able to fill the goal-scoring void created by the departure of Jordan Hume?
Of course.
Can I just make a couple of points around the striker situation? You know, of course, it was a blow to lose Jordan. You know, but on the flip side, you know, he was at the National League level, so there's never any guarantees with any of them. The jump is if he had stayed, it's unlikely we'd have been able to afford to Ryan Coulter, Alistair Smith. So while people will obviously see that as the one area of weakness, we did manage. Sorry, I've got an isolating kid shouting and bawling here. You know, we did strengthen other areas of the team, and I think people do recognise that. We've signed Marcus Dinanga for not a minor fee. 24 years old, come from a League Two team. He's the kind of profile that we like. You know, he's scored goals in non-league football, plenty of them. He's made the step up, hasn't quite got the game time. We see him as an excellent option for us moving forward now, number 9. And we have confidence he'll produce the goods over time. There's always the talk about we need to sign a 15, 20, 25 goal a season striker. Every team in the division does. Every team in every division does. A proven one in this division will cost 3, 4, 5 times what our highest paid player is worth. Go through the top scorer list for last season. That is the reality of the we're in right now. In National League North, that's not the case. But that is the reality, and that is what we're working with. We brought Marcus in. We're delighted with him. We can't wait to see him in pre-season. I think he'll round running. Fans will love watching him.
Okay, thank you. We've got some comments and questions now, mainly sort of mainly for Phil, but Robert Lister says, great to see some great experienced players altering for next season. Feel it's finally going in the right step. Come on, Alty. Paul Burton has a question for Phil, please. First of all, good luck in your new full-time role. I bet there still won't be enough hours in the day. Regular goal scorers apart, I don't believe there is much wrong with the current group of players, as we proved we can compete with the best last season. However, the lack of squad depth is sometimes highlighted by a run of injuries and the reliance on lone players, which may be worked against us at times. I understand getting the balance right of having strong cover in all positions and keeping the players out of the side happy can be difficult. So I'm interested to hear what the recruitment plans are in this respect and whether we can expect more signings rather than loans this coming season. Will your full-time role mean that the net will be cast wider?
That's quite a big question. So where to begin? I think the recruitment has always been really positive at Altrincham. I believe it's something we do quite well with. Obviously, last season, I think you could tell in my tone with the centre forward situation, it was thrust upon us, and I didn't look at it as a failure. I know other people will, because they will judge failure as how many goals those players scored, but those players helped us stay in the division. So I felt that was a positive step in terms of having a look at different types. The one I was probably reluctant to let go, probably because of his goal return, was Byron Harrison. That was probably a mistake on my part, because when we were successful, Byron was probably a big part of that. But we were searching for somebody who was going to score us goals and take us forward. So recruitment is something where it does take a lot of thought. It does take a lot of time, but we didn't have a lot of time with regards Jordan leaving when he did. And that was the right thing to do for the football club at that time, whether people believe that or not. This time we've had a lot more time to think about things. And when we recruit players, we're always trying to recruit a similar type of player ID. And I think people can see that. People come up to me all the time saying, that's your type of player. I see why you've recruited him. When we take off one centre-half, so it's not coincidence. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. I think I spend the majority of my time, I see Rob more than I see my wife at times, or I speak to him more than I speak to my wife. And it's all to do with players. A lot of players we will never even look at. We will never even bring into the football club, but they're on our radar. We can pile lists, and we always try and bring in 2 in every position. The difficulty of last season is what I was alluding to earlier on with our fantastic medical team and strength and conditioning acquisition in Ryan Spencer is we shouldn't get as many injuries next year because we're going to be able to monitor everything more closely, and we're going to have gym facilities. So hopefully we won't have to delve into the loan market. But I must say, I thought our use of the loan market was exceptional last year. And then you look at the players we were able to purchase from those loan recruitment processes that we went through. Alistair Smith, everybody's devastated to see him go. He was alone. Just players of that ilk. It's been fantastic for us. And again, we stayed in the division. So everything we did last year was a success under exceptionally difficult circumstances. And I know people will think that I'm just pleading poverty here or trying to make excuses. I'm not. It was extremely difficult last year for a club like Altrincham. We rely on external resources such as community sports centres for training, gym access. We don't have that at our football club. So we had so many things against us last year, and the injuries just made that 10 times worse. And so our loan usage, I felt, was exceptional. Full credit to people like Rob who give me the resources I need to look at these different players to bring in lads that are suitable to fit our system. But it's unprecedented. I've never had that before. I think at one point we had 8 or 9 lads who would start in our team out for a period of weeks. We did so well to survive that period and survive the division because of that. And what people have to remember is when these players come back, it takes a number of games, it takes a number of training sessions to get them fit in a part-time environment as well. And I've said it a number of times when we, again, going back to the centre-forward situation, we don't have, and I know we are moving to that direction, but at the moment we don't have the luxury of seeing players in training sessions and knowing that they're going to do it for us in games. We have to play them in games. You look at Darren Potter last year, he played against Fylde. We realised that he wasn't quite going to be able to do it anymore for this football club at this level. And he was very open and honest about that. But because we sign him, people look at that as a new signing. It wasn't. It was kind of a trial period. But lads don't want to use that word as well. When you recruit them, they don't want to hear the words, I'm on trial. So it's you're signing them, we have a look at you. And then if they do well for us, then we retain them. That's just how football works. But when we're in a full-time environment, we'll be having training days, trial games in the day, where we can view these players, and maybe that will curb the disappointment when X, Y, or Z player doesn't work out. But I thought our recruitment was a massive success last year, and I know it will be this time, as Rob alluded to. I'm really feeling so positive about the position we are in. Currently, we're in a stronger position with the squad that we've got. Full credit to the board for being able to back us on that as well. And all the decisions around hybrid and full-time were a result of that. It wasn't a knee-jerk reaction from players not being able to cross over because of pay. It was a well thought out process where we looked at all the variables and decided the best course of action was to invest in the squad in the current model and move forward when we felt the right time was due to do so. So on the form of recruitment, we're really positive, really happy with where we're at the moment.
Thank you, Phil. And I think, as we all know, there'll be another Phil Parkinson in the National League next season. Wrexham have appointed the former Bradford, City, Bolton Wanderers and Sunderland manager as their new manager. And Simon Ellis asks, which Phil Parkinson has the more challenging job, maintaining or enhancing last year's position within a part-time framework at Altrincham, or having to win the league with Hollywood money at Wrexham? This one is definitely for you, Phil.
Well, it's funny. I've come across Phil a number of times. When I was at Reading, he was the captain there, so I was a YTS. So our paths have crossed, and I did have hair at the time, so there was even a spot the difference moment, and people getting carried away when he scored in the FA Cup, thinking it was me, and I'm sitting there on my mobile phone, having to disappoint people, telling them that no, I'm watching that game myself. So yeah, hey, listen, he's a fantastic manager, isn't he? He's such a great appointment by Wrexham, and I wish him all the best luck in the world. But I would love to have his resources, obviously, but I certainly wouldn't want to be in that seat. There's no other seat I would like to be in this division apart from Altrincham FC. I know we're going in the right direction, and as I said, I feel really positive about the upcoming season.
Thanks, Phil. The next group of questions relate to the team. First question comes from David Parker. And this is for Phil. David says, Phil, have you identified anyone to fill the void left by Alistair Smith? Are there going to be any more new faces coming in?
Yes.
That's to both questions?
Yep.
So we've identified a replacement for Alistair Smith, and there will be some new faces coming in.
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Steve Pugh says, given the signings we made after the season ended, what final pieces of the jigsaw do the management feel we still need to make, including, I assume, to replace Alty?
I feel we've made them. As I said earlier, I feel in a really good position. I think people have forgot the fact that we've purchased a striker from a league team, Marcus Denanga. At every level he's played at, he scored goals. We've brought him here to score goals. We believe he's the one who's going to be able to sort of bridge that gap for us, what we didn't have. So straight away, Marcus coming in shows a sign of intent from the football club of what we're trying to achieve here. We identified that as an area which everyone could see was an area that we needed to improve. When you lose a player like Jordan Hume, it is difficult to replace that player. It doesn't matter if I had time to think about it or not. It's difficult because he was such a big player, not just what with his goals, the impact that he had in the changing room, everything. But that's why Fylde wanted to sign that player, but also Jordan wanted to go. So if we wanted to stop Jordan, that would have created an issue within itself. And you wouldn't have seen the Jordan Hume, which you all know and love. You would have seen a player who didn't want to be here anymore. And I certainly didn't want to stand in Jordan's way. So when you look at that, when you look at other teams who have struggled to replace, and listen, I'm a Man United fan. Look, when Peter Schmeichel left Man United, how long did it take them to replace that player? When you lose key players, it takes time because there's a reason they're sought after, the reason they're such good players. But we truly believe the investment we made in Marcus is going to be somebody who can score us goals. Now, if that's not the case, we'll move forward, we'll do different things, but I truly believe in that player. And we created an environment for Jordan where there wasn't a great deal of competition. I think everyone knows that. There were certainly players who could step into the role and fill the void if he wasn't playing. But you need to create that kind of environment for players who need to feel like the main man and number one, and they're going to flourish in that environment. And I believe we'll create that for Marcus. Now, he's got to embrace that. He's got to take that with both hands, because that's what he's told me he's craving. And at the age, like what Rob was saying, he's at a great age. He's somebody who could potentially go again to help us go into a full-time environment, or go again where he's going to make this football club some money. So if Marcus scores 15 to 20 goals, I'll be very surprised if we see Marcus here next season. But hopefully it helps us get into the playoff positions or even go further on. And if we finish higher up, maybe Marcus wants to stay here. So there's a number of things that we have to consider when we're looking at player recruitment and the impacts of certain players. But everyone knows that's what we were missing last year. Everybody. The wingers are great. The midfielders, as you could see with the possession stats, do their job, win their battles, keep the ball for us, retain the ball. We've looked to address the Alistair Smith departure. We moved, as I said, me and Rob are constantly reviewing players coming in. So I can guarantee you there'll be a player coming in that position of a high calibre from a higher level with lots of experience. The defence, until we started moving things around to have a look at different things, we're rock solid. We were winning games 1-0. If we lost, it was by the smallest of margins. I know later on in the season, as I said, where I was moving things around because we were safe and it was only right to do so, to have a look at things. It didn't go our way and we lost a couple of games by more goals than we would like to. So we've strengthened in areas we need to. We've brought people in where we've lost people, but the key area is that centre forward position. And there may be one more addition there. That's something myself, Rob, Neil are looking at heavily at the moment. Are we going to bring in an addition in that role? But again, I would really like to give Marcus the opportunity to do what I believe he can, which is score goals for this football club.
Thanks, Phil. Next question comes from Ken Yearsley. Ken says, if you're letting our best players leave, how on earth are we supposed to compete at a higher level next season? All this rubbish about this club going places seems a bit silly to me. I'm sure most fans would rather have a good team on the pitch than a new toilet, etc. So who'd like to take Ken's question?
There's one thing I'd like to say about that question, which is the implied pour everything into the playing budget and nothing into the ground. Now, Alty fans will have seen over the years clubs who have those conference journeymen who have big salaries and just go to the club that's paying the most. And those clubs having absolutely no facilities. There's one club in particular I'm thinking of at the moment in the National League North who have players like Jefferson Louis and so on who were always challenging for the playoffs and never actually got promoted to the National League. But their ground facilities is like a field in Northamptonshire. So we don't want to be that club. We know that if we're going to get into the Football League, the stuff we need to do to the ground, there's a very prescriptive list of stuff that we need to do to the ground, some of which we need to do to even be considered for promotion, to even be considered to go into the playoffs. So that is work that will continue, some of which we'll have to do when we get promoted, some of which we'll have grants for. But we can't just assume that we can leave the J. Davidson Stadium as it is, not invest in facilities, and then expect to make the move to the Football League when the time comes. Also, if you've got a couple of thousand Stockport fans or Grimsby fans or whoever turning up, we need to make sure that the facilities that they've got in the away end are at least to a minimum standard of human dignity. So we will continue to, we have been investing in the ground, we'll continue to do so. This is not about every single penny that we get ploughing into the playing budget. That's not the club that we are. Our off-field development will keep pace with our on-field development.
Rob, have you got anything to add to that?
To just reiterate what Bill said, really, listen, we're committed to making everything about this club better on and off the pitch. And, listen, I'd rather sign a new player than fix the away toilets, but there's something that I've just got to get done. On and off the pitch, we're taking everything forward. We have to.
Okay, thanks, Bill, and to Rob. Getting towards the end of our questions now. The next question comes from Johnny Crowther. Johnny says, the middle of the park is, as Parky well knows from his playing days, where the most games are won or lost. The signing of Alistair Smith with his league experience at Mansfield was a brilliant one for Alty, and whilst his departure to Sutton United is deeply disappointing, what plans do Phil and Sorbs have in place to replace quality with quality, and will the board backfill with the necessary funds to invest in a key area of the pitch?
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, I think I answered that question a little bit earlier. We certainly will be bringing in quality to replace quality. It has to be. It was so obvious when Alistair played, the contribution he made, and he was sorely missed when he didn't play. I think the addition of Connor Kirby last season as well really helped us. So players of that ilk will be looking to recruit and a little bit more experience. So without a shadow of a doubt, that's happening. I can categorically tell you now the board have backed me on that, and there will be a player coming in of serious quality.
Just to add to that, if you think back to the squad this time last year, well, maybe not this time last year, but a little bit later, going into the start of the season in October, there was no Alistair. There's no Ryan Colclough. The squad as the season went on, we strengthened it as we went along. And I look at the squad right now. We brought Marks in. I'm very excited about Brad Jackson and the impacts that he can make this season. We're happy with Kennedy Diggy, another great option for us in defence. We're very happy with the shape of the squad going into the season. We will always look to improve it. We always will. It's football. There's always those little twists and turns. But going into the season, we're in very good shape right now.
Okay, that's great. The next question comes from Colin Andrews. Quite a complicated question, and we'll probably need some response from all three panelists. Colin says, I think Altrincham need to buy players from the league and stop playing lower league football friendlies. That is not football. You want to move forward, then play bigger teams and learn to play bigger teams. The ground is not at its best, and sort the drainage out so you can play the games. Also, you should get a disability football league table, for example, Altrincham, Fletcher Moss, etc. And you should have Altrincham Football Club shop in Altrincham Town Centre, so people can buy the products, and it's not far from Altrincham. It's a 5-minute walk. So stop playing lower leagues, not really good for the players. Play higher teams or overseas teams, get more fans, improve the ground and drainage, build a team for the future of Altrincham, open a shop in Altrincham to sell your products. People want this to happen for Altrincham to move forward and beyond. And finally, to use your reserve players more. So there's a lot of ground covered in that question. It's a very complicated question. So perhaps we can get some sort of general comments from all three of you.
I'll go first on the player one. We have bought players from pro teams. Marcus is from Stevenage, so that ticks that box. I think Bill will probably tell you about the drainage we've put in the pitch. So I think we've sorted that problem. Playing teams from a higher level. If you look at all of our other pre-season schedules, we always play teams from higher levels. It's just unfortunate this year with the pitch, as I said, we've not been able to do that. So I do think a lot of the things that have been asked that we're not doing, I certainly think we are. So I disagree with some of them statements.
Rob or Bill?
I think it's worth letting fans know that we are actually in the middle of an exercise at the moment where we're reviewing our 5-year plan, the strategy that we've put in place. Just as we were coming out the National League North into the Northern Premier League, we're basically writing the next chapters of that, and we're looking at the capabilities that we have within the club, off the field primarily, to make sure that as we continue to evolve, we've got the right people to drive the club forward. We've come a very, very long way in that time. We've got a heck of a long way to go. So we need to make sure that as the club evolves, the people that we have evolve with it, the capabilities that we have evolve with it, the facilities that we have available to us are in line with our overall vision. On the specific question of a shop in a town centre, we did actually look at doing that over the summer. We were going to do a test run with one over the summer. It wasn't entirely practical. It wouldn't have been particularly workable to do it to the quality and standard that we were looking at doing. So therefore, we put that on ice, and instead we've announced that we're going to be effectively using the sponsors' lounge as a bit of a club shop on occasion around sort of open days for people to come and look at the ground and be able to look around the sponsors lounge and so on and buy merchandise and the like on those days. So we're doing a little bit on the retail front there. There are other options that we'll explore in the future, but as I said, we're open to doing many things differently to how they've been done before and undertaking new stuff. We've come a long way. We're pushing the envelope to a large regard. The board and the management team have worked really, really hard over the course of the last 18 months during the lockdown. First of all, to get out of the National League North, and then to survive in the National League last season, finishing 16 points above the relegation places, by the way. We know that next season is going to be tough, but we need to continue the development off the field as well as on the field, and we'll continue to push that through.
Thanks, Bill. Rob, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, just from my side, a lot of kind of Colin's ideas and Dennis. I mean, I think Dennis sent me about 20 emails that I read with some really good ideas that you've already touched on, Brian. He mentioned about, having a scoreboard and so on. We're looking at all these kind of things. Ideas are great, and please, you can always through the club website. The more the merrier. We're always after these kind of creative ideas. We do have a lot of creativity already on the board, and throwing more of these ideas out there is good. The one thing that I would say, we're always looking for people to commit time and to help us see some of these ideas through as well. We're all spending crazy amount of hours and time trying to take the club forward. If there is anybody out there who is willing to, commit some time to a project or I think the news that went out yesterday advertising, I should give the day, Wednesday, advertising a few volunteer roles. If anybody does have the time and inclination and desire to get involved, then please do get in touch with us, because it helps us accelerate some of these ideas that we've got a million things on the go at the moment. The more the merrier. So please do step forward.
Okay, thanks very much. Right, that completes all of the questions. It's been quite a long session. Thanks very much to everybody for submitting so thoroughly. And whilst there's clearly lots of things to do, I think we're going into the new season in a positive vein. Training starts on Saturday. We'll be announcing the squad numbers over the next few days, and it's only just over a couple of weeks away until the first friendly on July the 24th, and the start of the season is not too far beyond that on the 21st of August. So there's plenty to do. There's lots of challenges, but we're going into the 2021-2022 season in a positive shape and in a very positive form. So thanks to everybody for watching and supplying the questions, and for you three guys, Phil, Bill and Rob, for answering those once again, and hope you found this session to be a useful one.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brian, for comparing.
Thank you.